Good afternoon, I'm Leila Masimova and you're watching A News. Let's see your headlines. World's political and religious leaders congratulate new Pope Leo XIV. European ministers to endorse special tribunal for Ukraine, Karas says. President of Türkiye, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, warns of a war risk as India and Pakistan tensions rise. The appointment of Pope Leo XIV, the first American lead the Catholic Church, has stirred a global wave of emotion and unity as Catholics worldwide respond to the historic moment.
The announcement came during a morning mass at Chicago's Holy Name Cathedral, Pope Leo's hometown parish. Worshippers were still receiving the sacrament when news broke that their own had become the leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics.
My information is correct. The brand new Holy Father, the brand new Pope, is American-born Cardinal, now Pope, Cardinal Robert Prevost, born on the south side of Chicago. He's taken the name Leo XIV.
Church leaders in Chicago expressed astonishment and pride, calling the moment both spiritual and personal.
He's a very humble, a very kind person, and someone who really does look to the Lord for guidance in all that he does.
In Washington, clergy emphasized Pope Leo's ability to bridge continents, pointing to his time as a bishop in Peru.
Now, also bishop in Peru, you have a mix of both worlds, Latin America, America.
Outside St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, the news caught many by surprise, but sparked hope.
And when he was announced and getting to see how warmly he was received by the individuals there, I thought it was very promising, and I think that Pope Leo is going to have a tremendous tenure as Pope.
In Los Angeles, the city's Archbishop highlighted Leo XIV's Latin American ties, seen as essential for a region deeply rooted in Catholic tradition.
He talked about the need to be a missionary church and the need for everyone in the church to be missionaries, proclaiming the love of Jesus Christ.
In Rio, Brazilian Catholics praised Leo XIV's spiritual depth and independence.
That he will not succumb to ideological narratives and bring the word of Christ to the whole world.
In Argentina, where Pope Francis once served, the faithful voiced hope that Leo XIV will continue a legacy of inclusion and peace.
He is very loved, has worked a lot in Peru. We believe he will make a good papacy.
At St. Peter's Square, the crowd erupted after a brief pause when Cardinal Prevost's name was announced. US Catholics in Rome spoke with pride, many surprised but uplifted.
It's a big surprise and a big blessing for the church and for the church in the United States also. He's a missionary, he's a religious from the Augustine order, and he has a lot of deep spirituality for the Holy Church.
The ripple effect reached Australia, where Catholics welcomed the promise of continuity and youth.
I hope he does carry on with Francis's legacy of inclusivity, particularly, and also, you know, making the church appealing to young people. I think that would be really, really lovely to see.
Pope Leo XIV was elected by a 2/3 majority of 133 cardinals after the death of Pope Francis last month. At 69, he brings decades of missionary experience in Peru, dual US-Peruvian citizenship, and a quiet spiritual style. While a surprise pick, the new Pope now faces a world watching closely, expecting leadership rooted in humility, unity, and reform.
To the city and to the whole world.
So that blessing extends.
World leaders have offered congratulations and shared their hopes following the election of Pope Leo XIV, marking a historic moment for the Catholic Church with the appointment of its first American pontiff.
The election of the first American Pope, a former missionary in Peru, known for his commitment to social justice and decades-long service in Latin America, marks a historic moment for the Church and global diplomacy. In the United States, where Pope Leo XIV was born in Illinois, reactions were swift and emotionally resonant. US President Donald Trump has congratulated Pope Leo XIV, who became the first American to lead the Catholic Church. President Trump welcomed the news, calling it a proud moment for the country and saying he looks forward to meeting the new Pope. Vice President J.D. Vance posted, "Congratulations to Leo XIV, the first American Pope, on his election." Vance, however, has faced past criticism from the Pope for his policy views. European Parliament President Roberta Metsola called the Pope a beacon of hope, while EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen emphasized wisdom and dialogue. On behalf of the European Union, Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas highlighted the Pope's unique role in global diplomacy and emphasized the bloc's interest in deepening ties with the Holy See. Meanwhile, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk shared a message steeped in symbolism. Habemus Papam, evil will not prevail. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni praised Leo XIV's inaugural message as a powerful call to peace, brotherhood and responsibility. French President Emmanuel Macron called this a historic moment for the Catholic Church, sending a fraternal message on behalf of France. Hungary's Viktor Orbán simply declared a new hope. God bless Pope Leo XIV. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed continued Vatican support for justice and peace. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez congratulated the Catholic Church, expressing hope that the new pontificate would strengthen dialogue and human rights. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum reaffirmed a shared commitment to world peace and prosperity, while Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva called on Pope Leo to continue the legacy of Pope Francis, especially in promoting peace, social justice and environmental protection. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi expressed hope that Leo XIV would uphold values of peace, tolerance and mutual respect. From Lebanon, Prime Minister Nawaf Salam offered congratulations to Catholics in Lebanon and around the world. Pope Leo XIV, an Augustinian friar by background, brings a strong pastoral and academic legacy to the papacy. In his first remarks, he called for peace over conflict, unity over division, and compassion over fear.
Ukraine will host a high-level gathering of EU foreign ministers on May 9 in a symbolic show of unity and defiance as Russia marks Victory Day. During the visit, ministers are expected to give final political endorsement for establishing of a special tribunal for the crime aggression against Ukraine and announce a €1 billion fund to boost weapons production inside this country. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said the move is aimed at ensuring long-term military support and legal accountability. She added that on Europe Day, those who truly support peace should be in Ukraine, not in Moscow. In the meantime, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has stated that Kyiv bears no responsibility for safeguarding what he calls Moscow's cherished military spectacle, prompting speculation about potential Ukrainian strikes on Russian military targets during key commemorations. Meanwhile, Ukraine's parliament has unanimously ratified strategic minerals deal with the United States, giving Washington priority access to critical resources and launching an investment fund aimed at post-war reconstruction. With us to unpack the military, political and economic ramifications is Professor Tim Wilson from Istanbul. Great to have you with us, Professor.
It's very nice to be here.
Professor, do you believe Ukraine could potentially be considering strikes on military targets inside Russia during the commemorations?
Absolutely not. The reality is that there have been, on the first day of this ceasefire, the ceasefire demanded by President Putin, there was apparently 734 violations by Russia. So it falls into the same orbit as the previous ceasefire. It's the Easter ceasefire. It's a nonsense. It's a farce. What I think the foreign minister called it a farce. And Russia simply isn't taking proper responsibility for what it sets out to do. This is an illusion of a ceasefire. Now, President Zelensky has said very clearly that he expects his soldiers not to attack, but to respond if they are attacked. And there's been plenty of reasons for them to respond. They haven't responded as far as I can see. I don't expect them to attack in Russia at the moment. And Zelensky has said, that if people truly want peace, they should be in Kyiv, not parading around in Moscow, watching the high-kicking soldiers. It's I looked at the parade this morning. It's an extraordinary spectacle. But the ceasefire, Zelensky has offered a 30-day ceasefire, which at least is realistic. These one-day, two-day ceasefires that Putin is offering are nothing more than an illusion, a plaster on a gaping wound of his own making.
And Ukraine's parliament has unanimously ratified a minerals deal granting the United States priority access to critical resources and establishing an investment fund for the country's reconstruction. Will this serve as a deterrent in relation to further Russian actions?
I don't think so. I think it serves to anchor. It serves to anchor Ukraine a little bit more to America, which looked very shaky because of Vance's extraordinary behaviour in the Oval Office when Zelensky visited there. But I don't think it does any more than that. It's the best deal I think Zelensky could get. It secures some sort of promise towards reconstruction after the war finishes. But a lot of the mineral deposits anyway are in areas that Russia is occupying, and the Russian occupation. Russia talks about denazifying Ukraine, but the evidence is that the Nazi state is increasingly the Russian state. It's if there's a fascist state in need of reform, that is Putin's Russia. It's what you see is the militarization of society. You see the Z symbol everywhere at the moment. The militarized school curriculum, the indoctrination on TV, all of this is the Russian problem. And something which I find so extraordinary at the moment is this thing called Russian community, which has turned up again and again in the last few weeks, attacking vulnerable groups, particularly migrants and gay groups and people, young people and old people, particularly those who look as if they should be conscripted, and this again is a fascistic group. Russia is hell bent on this Novorussia obsession, this ideology, which so when the war began, there was a fellow called Timofey. He had my name, Timofey Sergei Sev. I can't pronounce his second name, but he said something about what is Russia's plan for Ukraine. And Russia's plan for Ukraine, he said, what was basically the annihilation of Ukraine, making Ukraine Russian and ethnically Russian, culturally Russian. It is a cultural and ethnic conquest, and I don't think that has changed at all. And that is the problem. While that sort of ideology is ongoing, this conflict doesn't look as if it's going to be going to be stopping soon. And while Putin can control the international media by talking about ceasefires that don't really have very much meaning, it's lip service to peace. And if you want to find real peace, that is in Ukraine. It's not in Russia, sadly. Though there are so many people in Russia, so many people I know who are terrified of a knock on the door to be conscripted. The Russian police and soldiers are invading schools and gyms and picking people who look as if they're military age, particularly if they're foreigners. They're given a choice. You can leave the country in disgrace, or you can enlist. So this is the aggression which ordinary Russians are facing.
All right,
and in contrast,
thank you, Professor Wilson. We appreciate your perspective, and thanks for joining us. Today, Russia celebrates the 80th anniversary of its World War II victory over Nazi Germany with a military parade on Red Square led by President Vladimir Putin and attended by Chinese President Xi Jinping. The event, held under tight security after recent drone attacks, featured a large military display. Over 20 international leaders joined the commemoration, signaling continued support for Moscow. Putin stood alongside Xi Jinping, emphasized the importance of remembering wartime sacrifices. Tensions between nuclear-armed neighbors India and Pakistan have escalated dramatically following deadly cross-border violence in Jammu and Kashmir. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has thrown his full support behind Pakistan's call for an international investigation into the recent attacks, warning the situation could spiral into open conflict as both sides trade missile fire and drone attacks. World leaders are urging restraint.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan expressed Turkey's full support for Pakistan's call for an international investigation into the deadly terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir, warning that rising India-Pakistan tensions risk spiraling into open warfare. Speaking alongside Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani in Ankara, President Erdogan said Turkey is growing increasingly alarmed over the deteriorating security situation in South Asia.
Pakistan ile Hindistan arasındaki gerilimin
And we are concerned that the tension between Pakistan and India may escalate into a hot conflict due to missile strikes in which many civilians have been martyred. May Allah have mercy on our brothers who lost their lives in the attacks. Once again, I offer my condolences to the people and government of our brotherly nation, Pakistan.
Confirming that he spoke with Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Erdogan reaffirmed Turkey's commitment to regional stability and criticized those escalating the conflict.
Türkiye olarak ateşe benzin dökenlerin olmasına rağmen
Despite those who pour fuel on the fire, we in Turkey are making every effort to reduce tensions and open channels for dialogue before the situation reaches an irreversible point.
her türlü gayreti gösteriyoruz.
His remarks came after India launched Operation Sindoor late Tuesday, claiming it targeted terrorist infrastructure at 9 locations inside Pakistan. India has described the strikes as both retaliatory and preventative, following recent cross-border attacks. Pakistan says at least 31 civilians were killed and 57 injured in the Indian strikes and subsequent cross-border firing. In retaliation, Pakistani forces claim they shot down 5 Indian fighter jets and vowed further response. The situation worsened Thursday as both sides accused each other of shooting down drones, with some crashing in densely populated urban centers.
Some of the countries in the Arabian Gulf also, who are close to us, and obviously they have a good relationship with India also, they have also advised that de-escalation should take place immediately. But India is making it, it's almost impossible. Every day there is an incident which raises the bar of conflict in the subcontinent.
World powers including the United States, Russia and China have called for calm. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with both Indian and Pakistani leaders on Thursday, urging de-escalation and support for direct dialogue, according to the State Department.
Goldman Sachs and the U.S. Federal Reserve have raised concerns that the Trump administration's sweeping tariffs could spark a surge in inflation and weaken consumer purchasing power. A recent Goldman Sachs report predicts that core inflation, excluding food and energy, could reach 3.8% by December, driven by heavy tariffs and a weakening dollar. The report also forecasts price hikes, with the second-hand cars up 8.3% and household appliances rising 7.8%. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell warned that ongoing tariff hikes could lead to high inflation, slower growth and rising unemployment. U.S. tech leaders are urging Congress to invest more in AI infrastructure and ease export rules, warning that America risks falling behind China in the global AI race.
Committee on Commerce, Science and Transportation.
Executives from OpenAI, Microsoft and AMD told the US Senate that the US must boost AI infrastructure and ease export restrictions to maintain its lead over China. At the Senate hearing, tech leaders called for more data centers and energy support, warning that AI progress relies on stronger domestic investment.
As a matter of economic security, as a matter of national security, America has to beat China in the AI race.
The hearing comes amid concerns over China's AI progress, including DeepSeek's model and Huawei's chips. The Trump administration plans to ease Biden-era export curbs, a move welcomed by lawmakers and tech leaders. The industry stresses that global adoption of US-led AI is crucial for preserving democratic values.
I think the United States has a lead today in what is a close race, and a race that will likely remain close. The number one factor that will define whether the United States or China wins this race is whose technology is most broadly adopted in the rest of the world.
The session wrapped with agreement that modernizing regulations is critical to maintaining US leadership, with lawmakers backing policies that balance innovation and national security.
Armenia and Azerbaijan are now engaged in direct negotiations over a peace agreement, with Russia's role as a mediator coincided complete. Armenian Security Council Secretary-Amen Grigoryan said, according to Armenian media. Russia has already played its role as a mediator. We now consider direct talks with Azerbaijan to be more productive, Grigoryan stated, adding that there are no updates yet regarding the signing of their peace agreement. On 13 March, Armenia's foreign minister announced that Yerevan and Baku had agreed on the text of the peace agreement, effectively concluding the negotiation process. Armenian officials said they are now waiting for Baku to propose a date and a venue for the signing. However, Baku has since insisted that for the peace agreement to be finalized, Armenia must first dissolve an OSCE Minsk group and remove references to the Declaration of Independence from its constitution, which includes territorial claims against Azerbaijan. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has expressed strong optimism about the prospects for lasting peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan. He stated that there would be no war between the two countries, emphasizing that the region is moving toward peace. Pashinyan said the draft peace agreement aimed at normalizing relations has been finalized and is ready to be signed. He noted that the region deserves to live in peace and prosperity and reaffirmed Armenia's commitment to that goal. Despite acknowledging ongoing internal and external provocations, he affirmed Armenia's continued dedication to building peaceful relations with Azerbaijan. Now, more in the latest statements made by Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and the country's Security Council Secretary Armen Grigoryan. Joining us live from Tbilisi is George Chidlashilli, Associate Professor of the European University. Professor, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So let us begin with what Prime Minister Pashinyan stated. He said that despite internal and external provocations, Armenia remains committed to peace with Azerbaijan. What are those internal and external threats that the Prime Minister refers to?
Well, I believe, obviously it is always better to act directly to the Prime Minister, but it's hardly possible at the moment. So I believe that he still considers, Armenia considers that Azerbaijan tries to, I would say, play its stronger hand in the moment and press some further advantages, like what they call the Zangezur corridor or some other issues. He might also mean, maybe not say directly, so also mean Russia, because Russia recently announced that it will have a special representative for Armenia to take care of the future of the country, probably interfere in the election in about a year. So I think it is generally, of course, today Armenia is a very complicated situation. And so I think it was a generic phrase referring to this not very advantageous situation Armenia finds itself at the moment.
And also, Armen Grigoryan, Armenia's Security Council Secretary, has stated that Russian mediation phase is over, which seems to be a reiteration of what Baku stated some considerable time ago. Your thoughts, Professor?
Well, it was obvious that the Minsk group that exactly 30 years ago was focused primarily, not primarily, exclusively on keeping the status quo, which was very unjust at the moment. Mm-hmm. So now, since Azerbaijan restored its territorial integrity, so now obviously the Minsk group outlives its usefulness. It has dawned on Armenia as well, so Russia is not a very reliable ally, and now the time of this very intense cooperation with this country is over. And that's why, hence the disappointment which had been voiced for the last 4.5 years, after the 44 days war, basically, they keep saying that Russia is no longer a reliable partner. They need other ones, but obviously, in the first place, so the solution of the problem and the comprehensive peace agreement, which I hope will come by at some point, is in the hands of Armenia, Azerbaijan primarily. So there are several conditions which has to be made, and obviously there should be some formal request or requirement to disband the Minsk group and make it a part of history.
Thank you so much for your answers. Today marks 80 years since the defeat of fascism in the World War II, a conflict that reshaped nations and left a lasting impact on global history. In this special report, we explore Azerbaijan's critical role in that war, from the oil fields to the battlefield, and how it become a part of a larger struggle for freedom and survival.
One of the bloodiest chapters in human history. The Second World War claimed the lives of millions across the globe. It was not merely a military confrontation, but a struggle for the very survival of humanity. Azerbaijan's contribution to this struggle stood prominently. More than 640,000 Azerbaijanis were mobilized to the front lines in the war against Nazi Germany. Of these, 300,000 never returned. They fell in battle. Yet what they left behind was courage, determination, and a profound love for their homeland. Azerbaijan's national divisions, the 77th, 223rd, 336th, 402nd and 416th Rifle Divisions carved a path from the Caucasus to Berlin, writing their place into history. In April 1945, the 416th Division was among the first units to enter Berlin. Under the command of Colonel Rashid Majidov, they raised the victory banner over the Brandenburg Gate, a powerful symbol of Azerbaijan's role in defeating fascism. This victory was forged not only on the battlefield, but also in the factories. During the war years, Baku became the Soviet Union's fuel lifeline. In 1941 alone, Azerbaijani oil workers extracted a record 23.5 million tons of oil. Throughout the war, Azerbaijan supplied 75 million tons of oil, 22 million tons of petrol, and 11 million units of ammunition, figures representing more than just numbers. They reflect the heartbeat of an invisible front. 4 out of every 5 Soviet tanks, planes, and vehicles ran on fuel from Baku. Nazi Germany's push into the Caucasus, known as Operation Edelweiss, aimed squarely at capturing this strategic resource, the black gold of Azerbaijan. But Baku resisted. Azerbaijan resisted. Their steadfast determination ultimately overturned the invaders' plans. Baku fought not only with oil, but with iron, steel, and unyielding will. 63 new industrial plants were launched, over 300 inventions implemented, and 130 types of weapons and military equipment produced. Factories switched to 12-hour shifts. Women and children worked tirelessly on production lines. While battles raged at the front, victory was being forged in the heart of Baku. Azerbaijani soldiers fought not only within Soviet borders, but also contributed to the liberation of countries such as Poland, France, Yugoslavia, and Italy. Among them, Mehdi Husseinzadeh, known by his codename Mikhailo, became legendary in Yugoslavia and Italy for his bravery, sabotaging enemy operations, neutralizing more than 1,000 enemy officers, and becoming a hero of the resistance. In France, Ahmadiyya Jabrailov became celebrated as a hero after joining the French resistance. Known affectionately as Karko, Jabrailov participated in daring operations, risking his life repeatedly to rescue approximately 500 children from Nazi captivity, ensuring their safe return home. During the war, Azerbaijani railway workers transported 1.6 million wagons of supplies to the front. From the Caspian Sea region, 434,000 troops and civilians, hundreds of vehicles, and tons of munitions were delivered. Some 149,000 citizens volunteered as blood donors, sending over 41,000 liters of blood and thousands of medical supplies to the front. The Azerbaijani people mobilized as one nation. Women in factories, children in workshops, and men at the front all shared the burden of war. The public contributed personal resources to the defense fund, including 15 kilograms of gold, 320 million rubles, and 125 wagons of winter clothing. The entire nation carried the weight of the war on its shoulders. 80 years have passed, yet the echoes of victory over fascism still resonate through the free streets of the world. Azerbaijan did not participate in this war solely as a Soviet republic. It fought and sacrificed as a people united for the future of humanity. Victory in World War II was achieved not only by arms, but through the unity and sacrifice of millions. Azerbaijan's role in this struggle spanned from its vital oil production to the courageous frontline operations that helped bring the war in Europe to an end.
Italians gather to honor all who resisted fascism, including the Azerbaijani heroes of Monte di Nase each year. Their names may be lost, but their struggle for freedom is etched into the memory of this land. Our correspondent Andy Muir has more from the Monte di Nase, Italy.
They fell seeking freedom in vain. That is the inscription of the plaque commemorating the death of about 118 Azerbaijani soldiers killed by Nazi fascist forces in Monte di Nase in the north of Italy in April 1945, just weeks before fascism inevitably met its own end. The massacre of Montedinese, as it's now known, was the most severe instance of violence during the Second World War here in the Bergamo area, second only to the bombing of the Dalmine factory in 1944. To this day, Italian sources say that the massacre has not received the attention it deserves, and many questions were left unanswered. Researcher and author Andrea Pioselli made it his mission to set the record straight. Gathering testimonies and sifting through archives, he put out a book on the events of April 1945.
So, the local people referred to them, both in oral testimonies and in written records of the Italian resistance, as Mongolians. This was because some of them, though not all, likely came from Central Asia, from the Soviet republics located there. So, they were called Mongols, or people believed to have come from Mongolia. The locals did not know exactly where these men came from. It's possible this was simply a general assumption, but we cannot say for certain why the term Mongols was used.
Originally captured Soviet soldiers that defected to the Germans, the Azerbaijanis killed in Montedinese deserted the SS division they were a part of. In 1945, several thousand of their countrymen were part of the East Turkic SS division that was sent to Bergamo to fight the partisans. Unwilling to obey, many of them left for neutral Switzerland, while some tried to join the partisans. The Montedinese group disobeyed the German command to head towards the front and decided to desert, working with a group of partisans from the Bergamo resistance. They reached the village late at night on April 12th, after a day of marching, with the Nazi fascists and other former Soviet soldiers still under German command on their trail.
There were partisan guides, but these guides did not have clear orders. The Azerbaijanis themselves likely had internal disagreements. As a result, several hundred men waited the entire day on top of Canto Alto. Only in the evening did they descend from Canto Alto toward Montedinese, toward the village. They camped in the surrounding meadows, farmhouses and rural cottages, the Kasine that you've seen. By then, however, it's clear that their presence had already been reported to the German and fascist commands. On the morning of April 13th, German and fascist troops were dispatched to block the Azerbaijanis' route. At dawn, though we don't know exactly why it happened at that moment, there is a very specific testimony from the village priest. He recalled that as he rang the church bells at 6 in the morning, the first shots were fired by the German and fascist troops who had arrived from Bergamo. The Azerbaijanis were caught by surprise for the most part. What began as a battle quickly turned into a manhunt by the fascists and Germans through the fields, farmhouses and hills surrounding the village.
With some 45 dead in the fierce firefight, more than 70 were captured and shot without mercy. The bodies were stripped of personal effects and any means of identification. They were abandoned and buried in mass graves days later. It took 5 years for their remains to be united and buried at the cemetery of Montedinese. The Bergamo province, as most of Italy, is adorned with monuments reminding everyone of the dark times and victims, but also the fight and courage that brought about the fall of fascism. Each year, all across Italy, commemoration services are held for those fallen in the fight against fascism. Among those, a service for the Azerbaijani soldiers of Montedinese. From Bergamo for A News, Andy Mioch.
At the Copenhagen Climate Ministerial, the outgoing COP29 chair, Azerbaijan Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources Mukhtar Babayev stated Azerbaijan's pivotal leadership in global climate negotiations. He stressed the country's strong commitment to renewable energy, the development of green energy corridors, and the landmark $300 billion climate finance agreement.
In Copenhagen, we started this discussion in March 2024. Unfortunately, a lot of doubted regarding the Baku Forum, regarding the preparation process. And frankly speaking, we also we tried to demonstrate that we can do it. We mobilized to perform this obligation, perform this leadership in this very complicated process. And finally, in Baku, we agreed these outcomes. You know, this Baku finance goals, 300 billion. First time the countries agreed such big agreement, and donor countries agreed to contribute to climate agenda from the public sources, at least $300 billion. Then the carbon market, the Article 6 agreed. It's very complicated issue. But finally, 10 years discussions between the countries, and finally in Baku we agreed Article 6. Article 6 opened the huge opportunities for private investment, private sector investment to climate agenda, and I think the billion dollars will invest from the private sector to the green transition, to the green climate issues. At the same time, loss and damage fund, the operationalization of this fund is also one of the tasks at the COP29. Also we agreed with the parties regarding the operationalization of the fund, and now already this fund start to work. And our last meeting in Washington last month, April 2025. We met with the fund management. This already prepared to start the funding in 2025.
Kazakhstan is deepening its ties as Turkic-speaking nations. The Senate, the upper house of parliament, has officially ratified a key protocol amending the founding agreement of the Cooperation Council of Turkic-speaking states, also known as the Organization of Turkic States. The move is being seen as another step towards strengthening regional unity and cooperation among Turkic nations.
Kazakhstan Senate approved the law on ratification of the Protocol of Amendments to the Nakhchivan Agreement, originally signed in 2009. This agreement laid the groundwork for the creation of the Cooperation Council of Turkic-speaking states, a multilateral organization comprising Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Türkiye, and Uzbekistan. The new protocol introduces a series of amendments aimed at updating and expanding the scope of the organization's mandate. The ratification signals Kazakhstan's commitment to regional integration under the umbrella of Turkic unity. In recent years, the Organization of Turkic States has evolved from a primarily cultural initiative into a more robust geopolitical bloc, with growing ambitions in transport connectivity, space cooperation, and regional conflict mediation. With this move, Kazakhstan aligns itself more closely with the long-term strategic objectives of the Organization of Turkic States, as the group prepares for upcoming summits and initiatives designed to deepen cooperation among its members and expand its influence on the international stage.
That's all we have for now. It's been a true privilege to be a part of your daily news. Thank you for your trust and stay tuned to A News.